Well, I'm Kazzie Kennedy, and this is the final chapter in my story. And it's come to light now because of recent events that have unfolded within my life. Many know that I'm a victim of child abuse. I went on to become a survivor of child abuse, and I thought I'd dealt with all the things that being a victim of child abuse entailed. And I guess I wasn't, because some 45 years later, things have come to light that even me in my imaginary mind could have come up with. I was born of one woman and given to another to raise. And as a consequence of that, I have siblings scattered far and wide. Sadly, many of those siblings I still had to grow up around because they became cousins instead of brothers or sisters. I'm really struggling with this clip. It's not an easy one. I always said that the events of anyone's child abuse is deeply personal, it's deeply painful, and we all have our own experiences, and mine's no worse than yours. But I need to talk today about those that control the lives of newborn children and the processes that many of us have to go through, whether we're given away at birth or we're adopted out or we're just kept in a family where someone believes that it's okay to abuse a child of any age, which we all know that it never is. It's never okay to believe a child's being abused and say nothing. It's never okay to think maybe there's a child being abused and then say nothing, because that in itself aids and abets the perpetrators or the pedophiles to continue their run. That happened to me, and I didn't realise because I had no way of knowing. So you see, the woman that gave birth to me had children prior to me, and it was her husband at the time who decided I should go to live with the parents I went to live with. In the recent, I do apologise, I don't normally fumble. In recent weeks, I've been informed that my half-sister, born many years before me, was also molested by the man that I grew to know as my father. And she told her dad, and her dad kept her safe and kept her away from the man she called uncle. And yet he had no problem at all, handing this tiny, brand new baby over to a man he knew was capable of molesting a child. That man was the man I called Dad. And that was a tough one for me, simply because I think being given away at birth has its own perils. It's an each-way bet who or what you're going to end up with. But when an adult knows that there could even be a remote chance, a remote possibility that anything other than the natural right of every child to be protected, to be loved, and certainly not to be used as someone's sexual object. Now that sort of took me back into my stride, and I ended up back in a fetal position and haven't been in that kind of a state in well over 20 years. So it was foreign, yet it was familiar. It was an easy place to hide, but then where's the hiding get us? So I put my chin up and looked out and up, over and above for a little bit, and I thought, there's only one person that's left alive that grew up in the house I grew up in. There's only one person to ask how or if he believed there was anything wrong going on under the roof of the house he grew up in. My brother was 10 years my senior, and so, being that there was a fairly big age gap, we didn't have a lot to do with one another. He was very close to his dad, and it was his biological dad, so I guess maybe that's to be expected. However, I decided I'd been estranged from this brother for over 30 years, and I finally found the courage to look over the top and be prepared for the answer he might give. Funny thing about believing you're prepared, I asked the question, did you know that your father had molested Sandra? He said no. I said, give me a minute. I said, did you know your father was molesting me? I've got to tell you, of all the replies he could have given me, I wasn't quite ready for the one that he did. His answer was simple and straight to the point. He said, well, I did come home one day and see you in Dad's bed, but you weren't making a fuss, so I thought it was consensual and walked out in disgust. Imagine saying that to me, someone who just fights and has fought her whole life for children. I said to him, at what point did you not get that this was an old man raping a little girl? And he said, if I knew then what I know now, I would have gone to the police. And it stumped me. And the corner, the fetal position, the rocking backwards and forwards was back. And I wasn't me anymore. I was a little girl who used to sit in a corner and put a book over her face and dive inside that book, because while I was in there, no one could see me. And that's when I felt safe. However, now I had a new set of questions, a new set of dilemmas. How do I deal with this newly acquired knowledge? Well, I can tell you what I did for the first 4 days. I laid on the floor and cried, and I cried. And for something different, I cried some more. I cried tears of anguish and of pain. And I wanted the 2 surviving men, one that gave me to the pedophile, the other who allowed it to continue. I spoke to people I hold close, and I told them I was broken and that I didn't think I could get back up this time. As always, after many bad words that are definitely never going to make it to print, my husband said to me, you will get back up, and you will fight, and you will let the world know that this is not acceptable, not for me, not for you who have ever been a victim of child abuse. There is no excuse to abuse a child. There is never an excuse to overlook a child being abused. And that's what I've had done to me my entire life, so it seems. Now, I was ready to quit. Throw it all away. What did I have left when I'm sitting in a corner rocking backwards and forwards? And I sat there for days, and it felt like years. And I saw that little girl, and I saw that teenager, and I saw that broken woman that nobody cared about, nobody wanted to listen to, that nobody heard, that nobody saw. And that was okay, because I enjoyed being invisible. And then all of a sudden, I looked up, and what did I see? The face of my husband smiling at me, saying, come on, you can do this. And so with every come on, you can do this he gave me, of course, I had to believe him. For a very long time, he was the only person that ever told me the truth. He was the only person that reminded me of what was and what is. So through all the tears and all the pain and all the anger, and all the heartache, where was I? What was I? Who am I? They weren't tough questions anymore, because that same person that all those years ago said, oh, listen, tell me. And he did. And he reminded me this time of the ever important knowledge that no one can take away from me, that no one can tell me I'm not, because you see, this is the truth. Today, I'm a survivor, I'm an advocate, I'm a mentor, and I know that I choose life, no matter how many people wish me dead. Tell me they wish I'd fall off the edge of the earth. No matter how many people think they've got secrets. Secrets are only ever one person's gossip away from being someone else's worst nightmare. Well, I really didn't want to have to cry, but I knew I would. I'm not ashamed nor embarrassed by my tears. They cleanse our souls and replenish our spirits. And what I know is that pain that I saw and I felt for a little girl that no one cared about. And the reality was, my husband made me remember that that little girl at the end of the day is still me. The only difference today is she's not afraid. She'll punch back. And she certainly doesn't know how to be silent. So I guess my reason for sharing is because I'm about to go on a journey to confront face to face the two men that felt it was okay to give a little girl no hope, no chance. But I guess they just didn't bank on the fact that I just never learned how to quit. And I certainly will never learn how to be quiet again. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling that you just can't take another step, you better believe me, you better take that next step. Because every one of us that's ever been a victim that keeps putting one foot in front of the other, you're doing the world a service, because eventually they've got to start listening to us, because we know best. But I also want you to remember, we matter, our lives matter, and if you're still trying to work out whether you should fight to reclaim that life, please do. Because if we give up, we prove them right. They tell us we're worthless or useless or no good or we're this or we're that. Nothing your abusers have ever told you is right. Nothing they've ever made you feel is right. So please don't give up. Listen, if I haven't, you can surely give it another kick, whoever's out there fighting. But I think that about sums this up. So, to the people that I can count on this hand who got me through the last week, of course no one more than my husband, I just say thank you. To Russell DeLacy, who fights his own battles but reminds me daily that with this kind of strength, with this kind of courage, and with this kind of, I can be real scary, so it tells me, I'm going to be okay. And if I'm okay, then I've got a voice that says, I'll fight to see to it that everyone else is okay. So until next time, just be good to yourselves and each other. And this one's not for the kids. See ya.